Hello, everybody. I'm Maurice Brown, and this is the Maurice Brown Show. Where are we? Common Grounds in Woodbridge, Virginia. We're doing a comedy show here tonight. It's called How About That? Let's Stay Together. It's about relationships with me and that guy.
What's up?
He's Chris Lawrence. He's a comic. He's performing tonight, and he's on the Maurice Brown Show. And Chris, we're darn glad to have you. Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, thank you.
Chris is a comedian out of Baltimore and DC as well, but he pretty much travails DMV area. A lot of people love him. Very funny guy, and he's going to be on our show tonight. Chris, tell us a little bit about how you got started in stand-up comedy.
I think it's just the same story that everyone has. They grew up watching comedy. I think the first time I ever heard stand-up comedy, incidentally, was I found a tape in my house. It was Pauly Shore, The Future of America, like back in the Weasel days, you know?
Right.
And I found this tape and I played it, and I just heard the laughter. I heard everyone, just how he commanded the crowd, believe it or not. And I asked my dad and my mom, hey, when did you guys get this? I was probably 10 years old.
Yeah.
And my parents were like, we have no idea where that tape came from. So it just manifested out of nowhere, but then I got hooked, and then I started watching other shows. You start watching Jim Carrey and In Living Color. You start watching him and Ace Ventura, and then I got into the Tom Green Show. And then at some point, something clicked in my head, watching all these comedians and going, I could do this. I would like to do this. So the first time I ever tried stand-up, I was in college. Freshman in college, I did a talent show, and I was ill-prepared, to say the very least. I had like 5 minutes of my own jokes, and I did impressions and this, that, and the other. Well, anyway, so it was awful, horrible. I bombed. At one point during the set, there's actually a tape
Part
of this.
of the comedy game. It happens.
Yeah, there's actually a VHS tape of this, and at one point I say a joke, and people think I'm done, and I was like, oh, I still got more, and I heard someone in the crowd. You could hear it on the tape. Someone go, oh, seriously? So that's how terrible it was. But then, I did stuff in college back and forth, and then eventually kids, and I decided to get back into it about, incidentally, 3.5 years ago at your show that you did, the first show you and I did in Manassas.
Exactly,
and then at that point I decided I'm going to do this consistently and see where it takes me.
Interesting stuff. So
Yeah.
that's what motivated you.
Yeah.
It motivated you, and it started with Pauly Shore.
It started with Pauly Shore.
I don't know if that's acceptable or not, but wow!
Yeah.
Just kidding, Krista.
Yeah.
But that's good. So you've been doing comedy approximately now for
Well, I would say
more or
like
less.
consistently 3 years, but the first time I ever hit the stage was 16 years ago.
Right.
And you just get that bug, and I try to do other things. I try to be passionate about other things, but comedy was always a thing that I was passionate about because I felt I was decent at it, and it's always the thing that I came back to.
Sure.
And
sure.
I just motivated by observations that I make in my own life and screw ups that I have in my own life, and quirks.
We all make them.
We all do, and then quirks with my kids, and it doesn't, that whole expression, apple tree, and apple. My kids definitely. I mean, my wife always says I have 3 children. Yeah, so it's just that's what motivates me. Get out there and tell my story.
Sure, absolutely. Now, my favorite question on the Maurice Brown Show is, how would you describe stand-up comedy in Washington, D.C. versus other places around the country that you may have performed in, Philadelphia, etc.? How would you First of all, where else have you performed other than D.C.?
So, other places I've performed have been West Virginia, Austin, Texas, actually Jamaica, and also Boston, and Southern Virginia, areas like that. It all depends on where it is. Some crowds really like more blue comedy. Some crowds like smart comedy. Austin was funny because it just had a mixture of everything. There was because not everyone it's kind of like DC. People in Austin are not from Austin, kind of like DC. Most of the people are not from DC, so you really
right,
a
sure.
mixed bag of perspectives.
Okay.
But I would say that most of the areas that I've been and done comedy in have been. The comics are, typically very smart people. They bring their own perspective on things. I like hearing other comedians twist on current events and things like that, and just on life experiences in general. Boston, they are some very funny people out there in Boston, and it's a mixed bag. Sometimes you get very raunchy, and sometimes you get very just out there. But yeah, it's a mixed bag, just kind of like DC. You know, DC, you don't know what you're going to get. Sometimes you'll get some avant-garde type stuff, and sometimes you'll get, you know, more traditional comedy. But it's, you know, I mean, there's little flavors, and sometimes the accents are different.
Without question.
Yeah.
He's Chris Lawrence. This is
I
the
am.
Maurice Brown Show, and you're going to see more of Chris later on this show doing his thing called stand-up on the stage. That's coming up a little bit later. Chris, thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, I appreciate being in your living room, Maurice. This was fun.
Chris Lawrence up next, everybody. The Maurice Brown Show.
He's a national treasure. Oh, we're having fun, man. So I haven't talked about my son a lot yet. He's a complete and utter mess. He knows exactly what to say to get me in trouble. He's 5. For instance, the other day, we're in the checkout line at the grocery store. And he says, "Hey, Daddy, can I have a candy bar?" I said, "Not right now, buddy." He starts flopping on the ground, throwing attention like he's some sort of soccer player during the World Cup. I pick him up off the ground, he starts screaming. I'm bringing him in the parking lot, he starts screaming at the top of his lungs, "No, you put me down, you're not my daddy, put me down, put me down!" I got people pulling out their cell phones. I'm 5 seconds away from Amber Alert. Luckily, my wife is in the car waiting like some sort of getaway driver and gets out and goes, "No, I'm pretty sure he's the father." 50-50. My wife loves that joke. A lot of my hippy-dippy, granola-eating friends in the People's Republic of Maryland where I live, they say to me, "Chris, there's no such thing as bad parent. Just different parenting styles." I'm like, wait a second, Moonbeam. There are some awful parents out there, okay? Reading a newspaper, man, the other day I saw a story about a woman who was turned into Child Protective Services because they found out she was giving her infant baby crushed up Benadryl in the kid's baby bottle to get him to go to bed. Yeah, right? Right, sir? Despicable. Idiot. Moron. I mean, doesn't she realize there's liquid Benadryl she could put in those kids' baby bottles? Put them right out, no evidence. What I'm trying to say is watch some SVU. That's all I'm trying to say.